If you want to be a great putter, you must begin by deciding that you can make yourself a great putter, and that great putters are made, not born, and that this is your choice, and you've got to take responsibility for choosing to become a great putter.
This is Putt to Win. The championship formula of Brad Faxon, the PGA Tour's best putter. And Dr. Bob Rotella, former director of sports psychology at the University of Virginia and leading teacher to PGA, LPGA, and senior PGA Tour professionals. Filmed at Brad Faxon's home course, Rhode Island Country Club in Barrington, Rhode Island. Putt to Win will provide you with the insights, drills, and games that Rotella has taught some of the world's best players. Here are Brad Faxon and Dr. Bob Rotella.
Hi, I'm Bob Rotella. I'm here to talk about putting with one of the great players in the world, Brad Faxon. And Brad is well known as a great putter on the PGA Tour. And we want to talk about putting today because putting is well known as to be the most important part of the game of golf if you want to play in competition. And we're going to talk today about attitude, and putting as an attitude and as a state of mind. And we're going to talk about feeling like you're playing at putting and playing a game. And we talk an awful lot about the game within the game, and that you have to feel playful when you're on the putting green, and you have to have a playful attitude and an attitude that this is a game and it has to be played, and that you have to basically develop a passionate love affair with putting. I often see a lot of people start to hate putting or dislike putting or kind of turn into a serious uptight nerd when they get in the putting green. And one of the things I love about Brad is he really embraces this attitude about loving putting his ball and looking forward to get on the putting green where he can have a chance to roll his ball to the hole.
I think that's a good point. A lot of times people are very afraid once they've hit a shot onto the green. And to me, you have to love going to the green. You have to not care if you miss. And I think what most people don't understand is what is playing. And maybe some of the things you can explain really are telling people what not playing is.
Well, I think not playing is putting pressure on yourself. Phrases that come to mind from players who are stuck with their putting are, you got to make these. You have to make these. You just can't miss putts like that if you want to be a good player. Or, they make a really good roll and the ball just burns the edge and doesn't go in, and says, you can buy rolls in a donut shop and destroy even a really good roll and turn it into a negative. And I mean, all kinds of ways people find to put pressure on every putt. And what we talk about all the time is learning to take the pressure off the putt and downplay its importance.
You've always told me to downplay the importance of a putt. And I find that the further we get into a round or the further we get into a week, it seems like putts that matter more, people try harder, they take more time, they don't trust their first instinct. And I think one of the successes I've had at putting is being able to throw away, doubt and fear, and as the round goes on, I've been able to, almost laugh off of a putt. And sometimes people think that means you're not trying hard to make it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people will tell me at first that they almost feel guilty that they didn't try hard enough. And I usually respond by saying, great, that's what we're looking for. I mean, that's a sign that you're learning how to try less, which is moving in the direction of learning how to try your best. And that's really what we're looking for. And we have a phrase we use all the time, that the only relationship between trying your hardest and doing your best is that if you're trying your hardest, you'll never be able to do your best. And I mean, I think one of the reasons Brad really excels at putting is he's learned how to try his best. And in order to do that, he develops a playful attitude where as he goes from the first green to the last green, he's always paying attention to feeling like he's getting looser and freer and more confident. And if anything, he wants to try less as the round goes on. And very importantly is if he misses a putt, as he does every day he plays, I mean, to try less on the next putt. And most people have an incredible urge to start getting more serious and trying harder. And, Brad mentioned the point about, thinking more and getting more serious and more careful. And what that means to us is you start standing over the ball and you try to remember 8 things, or you try to remember how to make sure you make a perfect stroke, or you start thinking about your stroke rather than thinking about the ball going in the hole or thinking about your target. And I mean, in the world of sport, it's always about emptying out your mind, getting a quiet mind, and learning to free it up and let it go to the target. And that also applies when you're standing behind the ball in terms of an attitude of trusting your instincts when you're reading the greens. I mean, so many people become like scientists, even in reading the greens, to the point that they're filled with doubt by the time they get up over the ball. And you know, we talk a lot about trust your instincts, go with your gut instinct. It's better than your conscious mind, and it gets your mind quiet enough so you get up over the ball and just have fun rolling it to the target.
Putt to Win will provide an inside look into the methods that Dr. Bob Rotella and Brad Faxon have developed and routinely used in achieving a consistently reliable putting stroke. Within this tape, Rotella and Faxon reveal and demonstrate 6 games and a pre-shot routine that they have adopted in attaining a dependable putting stroke. And throughout the video, they'll speak to you on establishing the proper mindset that they've worked on in achieving a positive and clear mental ability in making putts. By watching Putt to Win, you'll become the putter you want to be. The drills or games that they share with you on Putt to Win are the toss and catch game, the look and shoot game, the 9-ball game, the many club game, using your instinct game, the putt to make game, and Brad's pre-shot routine. Putt to Win will furnish you with the knowledge that the best putters in the world routinely use and apply in reaching their highest potential.
When I first came to see Bob in 1985, I was a rookie. I was bogged down in mechanics about my swing, my stroke, too many things. I was worried about what position my club head was in or where my putter was. I was thinking about everything all the time. I had a checklist before I started my swing. First thing Bob told me was, hey, get a set of keys out of your pocket.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to, right from the beginning, get Brad to understand he was a really good athlete. He's very coordinated. I wanted him to get him back to feeling like he was a stud athlete. I wanted him to feel coordinated, and I wanted him to see that his eyes and his mind subconsciously would do it for him if he would get out of his way and let it.
All right, so he told me, throw that set of keys to me. So I threw the set of keys, and the first thing he said was, where did you release that? And I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, well, where was your right elbow when you let go? And I had no answer to that, and I started to see what he was talking about.
See, and part of being an athlete was getting Brad to understand that I want him out here into my hand. When he threw the keys to me, all he did was look at my hand, which was a target like the cup, and just look and react. And naturally, the arm swings in the right direction. It goes up and down the line. He released when it was appropriate, and all kinds of wonderful stuff just happens. And what you have to do to really get good with putting and feel like an athlete with putting is to get out of your way and get your mind and your eyes out there. That's how athletes think. And I wanted Brad to use all of his athleticism when he played the game of golf.
And what he also said to me that made an awful lot of sense was, you know, this is a set of keys that you've never really practiced throwing that distance to that spot. It's a lot like putting. You get putts that are different all the time, different breaks, different wind conditions, uphill or downhill. And it made a lot of sense when I threw just to look and let go. And I think we want to try and make this too hard, the game of putting sometimes.
See, the next thing we did with Brad is I took a ball and I said, okay, Brad, now I want to show you how incredible an athlete you are. Let's just play catch. And each time I'm going to just move a little different distance, and every time, just like he's doing right now, Brad just looked where I was and threw it, and never once asked himself how far to take it back. He never thought about making sure I throw it at the right speed. He never questioned whether or not he had touch or feel. And a lot of my point was, Brad, you already have touch and feel when you're thinking like an athlete. When you start thinking like a serious, uptight nerd who's careful and worried about everything, all of a sudden you start convincing yourself you don't have touch and feel. And so we just want him to see that every time he threw the ball, it went to the target, and it always went at a good speed. In other words, he's never hurt my hand, he's never thrown it too hard, and he's never left it a mile short. And I mean, all that means is you already have touch, you already have feel, you just got to get out of your way and get out there and let it happen in order to realize that you do have it.
Well, your point with the key toss and the ball toss hit home quickly. You know, I started to laugh at myself at how serious I had gotten about my swing and about my stroke. And soon enough, I was able to, you know, bring these skills back to the putting green where I would look and let go, just like throwing these keys to you, Bob. Hey, good catch.
And see, so much of the point is If you play the game of golf long enough, you're going to have access to so much information that it can really confuse you, and then you try to go out in a golf course with all of that information in your head, and it'll tie up you in knots and destroy your athleticism. When you're playing any game or sport, your mind has to be out into the target. And I mean, if you're shooting a basketball, your mind has to be into the loop on the front or the back of the rim or the top of the square on the backboard when you're shooting a jump shot. And you're not thinking about anything other than looking at your target and reacting to it. In other words, a basketball player isn't shooting the jump shot and saying, I gotta make this, I gotta make it. He's just looking and shooting. A lot of players in basketball are a lot better when there's someone guarding them, because you know it's easier to just look at your target. If you're a trap shooter, you just look and shoot, and any good teacher will tell you if you aim or get careful, it'll mess you up. If you go fishing, you just look and cast to where you want it to go. And I mean, that's a general attitude of the shortstop. I always use the example of the shortstop in baseball. If you think about how unbelievably beautiful it is, and how you could make it very complicated or you can make it very simple. And the great ones always make it simple. And what they do is, if you think about it, the pitcher pitches the ball, the batter hits it. The ball goes toward the shortstop. The shortstop somehow unconsciously figures out how hard the ball was pitched, how fast it was pitched, how hard it was hit, how deep in the hole he is when he picks up the ball, how fast the runner gets out of the box and goes down to first base, and then just always holds on to the ball long enough and throws it just hard enough so it hits the first baseman's glove about a half a step before the runner reaches first base. And they're never wrong. And if you ask them what they were doing, they never thought about it. It never crossed their mind. And I mean, that is so unconscious and so athletic. And that's what we've got to get everyone to think like when they putt their ball. And yet, as we get this glut of information on more and more technology and technique, and instead of being honest that all of the great putters in history had a different way of doing it. They all had different strokes. They all used different equipment. They used to putt good on poor greens with putters that hardly any sweet spot in it. I mean, but good putters have always been able to putt well. And I mean, that's an attitude that we want everyone to understand and admit that I've got to learn to embrace this attitude. And it's very playful and it's very simple. And your mind is out there into this target or a spot or into seeing the path of your ball. But it's out there, it's not into your putting stroke, it's not into your backstroke. And there's a lot of people out there who are spending all of their time putting being into their stroke and thinking about how. When you threw a baseball, you weren't thinking about your takeaway with your arm. When you threw a football, you weren't thinking about how to throw it, you were thinking about where you wanted it to go. And of course, in those sports, if a player does get thinking about their arm position or their hand position or their release, I mean, they can't play their sport either. And so it's not that people don't mess up in other sports or get in their way. I mean, they do, just like they do in golf. But we just got to get people to understand that this is what an athletic mind is, and this is what trusting your athletic ability is all about.
Well, I like a lot of things that you say. One of the concepts I've really picked up on with putting that's helped me more than anything is the concept of look and react. And a lot of the sports that we use as examples, you know, the shortstop, the basketball player when he's guarded, are really important to use in putting. And when we say look and react, it's looking at the target, back to your ball, and hitting the putt without taking a lot of time to do this. And I think what we really can gain from this is we don't have a lot of tension buildup, we don't have a lot of time for fear and doubt to creep into our strokes, and you still have the picture of the target in your mind. And I think more than anything, a lot of the games that we play help us to get into looking and reacting.
One of our favorite games for really getting players to be athletic and to free it up is what we call the look and shoot game. It's a game that a lot of the guys on tour like to play with each other before they play in a tournament because it gets them feeling really athletic and free with their stroke.
I like this drill, Bob, because it gets you to react to the target. You don't have time to think. You look at the hole once, and then you putt. Davis Love and I play this a lot, Billy Andrade and I. Why don't we show them what we do? The rules are, we try and make 5 aces. We putt at the same time, and once we make an ace, we switch holes so you don't putt the same putt over and over again.
The real key to getting out of the game, what we want you to get out of it, is that you don't let yourself take time, that you just look and shoot each time you get over the golf ball.
Now remember, Bob, you've never beat me in this game.
Well, great things happen when there's a camera rolling.
so we're not getting into the reeds too much. Good putt, Bob.
Good try. That was
It's
almost
look and
good,
go.
Fax.
One look, and then your stroke. And
Yeah,
now we
Faxon-
switch after an ace.
Somehow, Faxon is in the lead.
And again, we don't want to spend a lot of time with reads or practice strokes. It's a look and go. And this is a familiar sight, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah, it's happened before. And the whole thing we want to get out of it is just getting your mind out there into the target and letting it go instead of being careful. It looks like there's a comeback coming. Oh, really shook him up.
A very slow comeback. It's 3-1, Bob.
3-1. Again, what we're looking for is for people to be athletic and to look and react and not let themselves get careful or into their stroke. Watch out, Fax.
Bob,
One of the greatest comebacks in history.
you're supposed to be a professor, not a
Could be
putter.
about-
Uh-oh.
Okay, give me a break, will you?
You're in trouble now, Doc. What is the score?
And one of the, it's what, 4-2?
4-2.
And one of the things we're looking for is as the game goes on to just keep letting her go more and more. Oh, 4-3.
Boy, we haven't
Fax,
missed yet.
Here we go.
It's maybe one of the biggest putts of your life, Bob. Does that mean you're going to take more time?
Yeah, the whole idea is we want to just keep running that table. Faxon's feeling it now,
Oh,
folks.
it's 4-4. This might be made for TV,
As
Bob.
long as they got this camera rolling, Fax. Oh my God.
Did you win? Oh, not
Oh!
a dry eye in the house. Get back there,
It already
Rotella.
counted it, Fax.
4-4.
Again, we want to see that he's just looking and reacting. And Faxon somehow has squeaked out a major championship. Now that's really what we want to get out of this game. First of all, we want to see Brad competing at putting, which means practicing putting the ball in the hole. Second of all, we want to really be getting into looking and reacting to the target with his mind and his eyes out there. And fourth of all, we want him to really just let it happen rather than taking a lot of time to think over the ball.
No, that's why I like this drill so much, because a lot of times when we get out on the golf course, we tend to get more serious, take more time, especially the last few holes when putts get more important. In this drill, you're only allowed to look at the hole once, no practice strokes, and you hit. And I think it teaches you to become a better putter. It's helped me become a better putter, and your misses will become a lot better. Your putts will have a chance, and I think this is something you want to practice an awful lot.
You'd be amazed that most people, when we first do this drill, almost feel like they're being sloppy or they're not serious enough or they're not taking their time, and that's exactly what we want you to feel at first. I mean, that more is a description of where you've been, and we want you to get to the point where you feel really comfortable just freeing it up and letting it go to the target and having fun while doing it. That's why we love calling it a game. It's a competitive game. Brad's a competitive athlete. He likes competing at putting the ball in the hole. That's what golf is about. That's what putting is about. A game called 9-ball is a really great game for helping anyone who tends to find that they start getting more serious and more careful and tighter as they go from the first green to the last green. And what we want to do is we want to just get people to take 9 balls, and on each ball consecutively we want you to get freed up and let it go a little bit more, or to try less a little bit more on each putt and feel like you're going more unconscious and getting more effortless and freeing up and letting it go more and more as you go from the first to the 9th ball.
When you do the 9-ball game, it's very important to make sure that you get less and less careful from the 9th to the 1st ball, and use the feelings that you get as you go from the 9th to the 1st to take you out to the golf course. So when you hit that last putt out of the 9, that's the feeling you want to have when you go out to the golf course. One of my favorite drills is the 9-ball drill. What this helps you do is to get more relaxed, more trusting, and freer after every putt. So we start with the first putt, hit it towards the hole, and try and get looser, more confident, cockier, and freer to the 9th one. Let me show you how it works. Now I'm going to try and make sure I don't take more time, I don't think anymore. I want to get looser and freer after every putt to the point where I want to be when I'm on the putting green in a tournament.
See, and everyone's urge when they play golf is, as the round goes on, to get tighter and more careful. And what I mean by that is to start taking more and more time, to getting more and more into your stroke and worried and concerned about making a perfect stroke, rather than being more and more out into the target or into seeing the ball go in the hole or seeing your spot. And we just want Brad to keep freeing it up and letting it go until he finds a place where it really starts feeling great, because he really feels like he's being athletic and letting it happen. And you'll see there's just tremendous effortlessness in what he's doing here.
I don't feel like there's a whole lot of thought. I'm into a good routine of looking at the target and putting. And I wish I could putt that good all the time.
And one of the things a lot of people experience when they do this drill is they feel like, gosh, I'm not even trying, or they might feel like they're being too casual or careless. And I'd say that's exactly what you're looking for most people. And that's an attitude we want you to get out of doing this drill.
Exactly. Most people, I think, are worried about their stroke or worried about missing, and they never get into just being totally confident, totally trusting, freeing it up. So I'm going to try and hit these next 9 like I did the last one that I just hit.
Okay, so once you find what you feel is the ideal level of really freeing it up and letting it go to the target, then we want you to see if you can hit the next 9 balls being in that state of mind and that degree of effortlessness on every one. And we want you, all we want to do is pay attention. Did I let myself let it go? Did I stay nice and free and react to my target? We don't want you to evaluate based on whether or not the ball goes in the hole. We want you, man, did that feel great? Did I feel like I let it go? Did I let my ball roll? Just, and get to that state and stay there.
I think that's an important point, Bob, is not to worry about whether they all go in or not, but just judge your putt on how free and how effortless you were. You'll find out the better you do at that, the more putts will go in.
And one of the things where this really helps Brad in a tournament is that there's a real urge every time you miss a putt to want to get more analytical and careful and tighter and more careful. And what Brad's learned to do is if he misses a putt, to free it up and let it go more, and to get more casual and let it go more as the round goes on. And again, you'll hear me say a lot, and Brad talk a lot about get out there with your mind. I mean, what we're talking about is just constantly keeping your mind out into the target and instinctively reacting and trusting that your brain and your athleticism will take care of everything that needs to be taken care of.
I think that's right. I think trying the 9-ball drill out will really help your putting. Many players that I talk to that are really wrapped up in mechanics or bogged down in their stroke really need to practice the game that I like to do, and that's to use a bunch of different clubs to putt with. I can putt with a driver, with a sand wedge, you know, maybe the back of a 5-iron. Anything that's going to get you out of thinking about your stroke and thinking about the positions of your club head and your arms and body. When you try these different clubs, you're sure to free it up and let it go.
It's amazing how often people say to me, oh, that Faxon, he could putt with anything. Part of the point of this game is to show people everybody could putt with anything if you had the right state of mind. Too many golfers have gotten very scientific and contrived and controlling in attempting to learn how to putt well. One of the games that we really like to play with Brad is a game where we just get a lot of different clubs and get his mind out into the target and reacting and letting go to the target to show him that putting's a lot easier than a lot of people have been led to believe. Brad, let's start off with a driver, and let's just roll some balls to the hole with the driver for us.
Okay. I found that a lot of players, even tour players, will benefit from this drill, if you want to call it a drill, of using different clubs to hit putts with. I'm going to use a driver, then a sand wedge, and just getting into the target and trying to hit good putts without thinking about the stroke. You know, everybody wants to worry about the position or everything, but you can do a real good job with all kinds of different clubs.
And I think what's really important here is notice that Brad's holding the driver at driver length. He's not trying to make the driver into a putter length club, and he's just letting himself look and react and roll the ball just like when he did other drills with his putter. And we want to make it feel like it's a game. He's just having fun. Sometimes we'll even go so far as to play competitive games with his driver against another player with a driver, just to see that they quickly, when they get competitive into the target, they can start rolling the ball really well.
Here's a sand wedge, Bob. I just try and blade this.
See, in this, when you're doing this, you're going to start feeling like you're playing a game. You'll immediately realize you don't know how to putt correctly with a driver or a sand wedge, so you won't be trying to do anything correctly. You'll just be out here into the target and rolling your ball. And we just find we have to regularly do this to make sure that people are staying out there. Okay, now Brad, let's go to a putter. Instead of addressing with the face of the putter, we're going to use the toe of the putter. And again, a big part of this helping you is to have fun when you're doing it and treating it as a game. Feeling artistic and athletic.
I think a lot of people that are too nervous or too afraid when they putt will really benefit from just trying this in practice and seeing that, hey, I can do this. And you know, you're going to make some putts. I don't think you want to worry about whether every putt goes in or not. But hey, getting the feeling that at least being a little bit more trusting, a little more confident.
See, if I see a player at the tour level or an amateur player standing over a putt and you can just tell that they're worrying about their setup or their stroke or their distance from the ball, we'll go to these drills to show them that everything doesn't have to be as perfect as you've been led to believe. Now, Brad, let's show them some different strokes using the face of your putter. That's great and that's wonderful. And it's a lot of fun and it's good for your head to see you're making putts that way. Now I'll show them all different strokes for all these people who want to study Brad Faxon's stroke instead of studying your attitude.
Well, sometimes I'll fool around on the putting green practicing, or even sometimes in tournaments imitating another player. Sometimes I'll be more upright and tall, like a Crenshaw or a Floyd. Sometimes I'll get down, be a little more crouched over and a little more of a pop stroke like Seve or Jack. And depending a lot of times on the amount of break that I have will dictate how I set up or how I feel. I can never tell what I'm going to do sometimes before I see what the putt is.
See, and we really want people to understand it's about having fun putting and being creative and getting your mind out into the target rather than worrying about doing everything perfectly with your stroke itself. And we talk a lot about the idea that we want to gain control by feeling like you're giving up control.
I think that's a valuable point. Gain control by giving up control. Most people don't understand the concept of letting go and trusting that it actually makes your putt better.
Yeah, it's amazing how many guys at first when they do this are going to feel like, almost feel guilty they're not trying hard enough or feeling sloppy or like they don't care. And I usually have to say, good, that's exactly where we want to be because you've been destroying yourself by trying too hard and getting too careful and caring too much. And I know Brad and I have talked a lot about the fact that kids can usually putt pretty darn well because they just let it happen and they don't know what they're doing. They're just looking where that hole is. See, and really what we want to get out of this game is a feeling that you're just letting it go to the target. And we want to help you understand that it's about making putting simple, it's about making it athletic and just letting it happen, and that there isn't one perfect setup or one perfect stroke. I mean, Brad doesn't even try to do the same thing every time he putts a ball. He's being creative and he's into the ball going into the hole, and that's what the essence of what we're trying to get across here with this game is that it's a game, and putting is a game and it has to be played, and to play at anything you have to feel like you're having fun doing it. Yeah, it's fascinating how many people who observe golf think that they're going to find some speed that's just the right speed for every putt and every speed green. And one of the things that I see with Brad and with people who are really, really good putters like him is every putt is a creative experience. It's this putt you might make firm into the back of the cup, this one you might make softly, this one you might make even softer. And it's always finding different lines and different speeds, and you're not set in this one way to putt, and you would never think of telling somebody after they missed a putt that you hit it too hard. I mean, it's like, well, I was putting to make it, and that's just what my instincts told me to do on that putt, and you have to go with that gut.
I think you have to trust your instincts more than anything, and a lot of times I don't know how hard I'm going to hit a putt until I'm actually, over the ball. And a lot of times your lines will change, your speeds will change because a putt may be a little bit more downhill, a little bit more uphill. And I've always thought it's very hard to have someone read putts for you because they don't know what you see. They don't know how hard you want to hit a putt or how soft you want to hit a putt. I've got a great story from a guy I played with in the Pro-Am at the Buick Invitational out in San Diego. This guy was a new golfer. He was a good athlete, but hadn't been playing competitive golf much. It was his first Pro-Am. On the last hole, a par 5, he had a 2.5 footer for a 5-net 4, which was going to help the team and actually maybe win the tournament in the Pro-Am division. And he was about to pick up his coin because he didn't know he had a stroke on this hole. And I said, wait, you've got to putt this out. And he goes, oh, this is a tough one. He had never played enough to know that this putt could miss. He put the ball down, picked up the coin, didn't take a practice stroke. He had one of these putters you'd find at a miniature golf course. He putted it into the back of the hole so hard it jumped up 3 times and then went in. Picked it up, and I said, great putt. I said, we might have won. He goes, oh, yeah, you couldn't miss one of those. And it was just a beautiful innocence that I think a lot of people would overlook. I play a lot of golf in Pro-Ams with amateurs, or a lot of casual golf at home with friends of mine that always want to know how to read a putt. Even some tour players will ask, how do you read putts? Well, I think it's very crucial and very important to be able to read your own putts, trust your instincts, and be imaginative. I've got right here about a 4 or 5 foot putt that's downhill with a lot of right to left break. One of the games that we play, and I do this often with Tom Kite, is to try and hit putts in with different speeds. Now, why would you do this? It's to show you that you can pick any line you want as long as you have a speed in mind. Now I'm going to hit this first putt firm, the next putt medium speed, and the next one softly to show you that you can hit it a lot of different ways. It's just making sure that you're decisive before you putt. Now here, we'll hit this putt in as firmly as I can. The second one, I'll hit a little bit softer. Play a little more break. And the last one, I'll really try and hit in softly. I think this is a great game to play to help you with your imagination and to help you become more creative when you putt.
We talk constantly about having pride in the fact that Brad can miss a putt on the first 2 or 3 holes and still end up having a great putting day. And that's an attitude, but it's even more importantly, it's a self-pride that you want to have, that you can take credit for because you know it's up to you. And part of it is just knowing that most people can't take it. I mean, they can't deal with it. I mean, I thought I was ready to play well. I thought I was ready to putt well. Man, I did everything you told me to do on that first putt, and it didn't go in, so to heck with it. And part of the challenge is to say, no, I'm going to be proud enough, and I'm going to be strong enough on the inside, and I'm going to keep believing in myself, whether they all start off going in like I'd like, ideally, or even if they don't. And part of it's just understanding that's the way all sports are, and that's a big part of the game. You know, the thing that comes to my mind as we get talking about this stuff is Brad and I have talked for years about this idea that if you're going to go play in a tournament, let's play to play great. And an offshoot of that in putting is, well, then let's putt to putt great. And let's make up our mind that if we have our attitude in the right place, we will always putt somewhere between great to really good. In other words, some days we might burn the cup. Some days we'll make most of our putts and miss some. Some days we'll run the table, and somewhere in between. We'll never putt poorly. We're always going to be somewhere between really good and great if we have our head in the right place. And that requires that we're always putting to make the putt. And we don't care if it's from 3 feet, 8 feet, 15 feet, or 60 feet. If we're going to putt our ball, let's putt to make it. And let's have fun, because that's what an athlete does.
You know, there's an old school philosophy that when you go out and putt, especially long putts, that you just want to get it close, maybe in a 3-foot area. I don't buy that at all. There aren't many sports where, you know, you just try and get it close. In basketball, you'd never shoot a three-pointer to try and hit the rim. You know, if you're throwing darts and you wanted to hit the bullseye, you wouldn't aim at the whole target. You know, you'd make your target small. And in putting, I like to see a line go right into the hole where I want the ball to enter. And I've been very good at being able to pick out a specific spot, aim at that spot, and whether it's from 3 feet, 15 feet, or 60 feet, okay, I've got a chance to make this putt.
If you hang around golfers long enough, you're going to hear a lot of discussion of putting to 2-putt or putting to not 3-putt. One of the challenges of the game is to make sure you don't let that get into your head and keep you from putting to make every putt you have. The idea of this game is to practice the discipline of always putting to make the putt, whether you're putting from 3 feet, 10 feet, or 60 feet.
That's right, Bob. Here we have a 4-footer straight up the hill. A lot of people like short putts because obviously you're trying to make it. Sometimes as they get further from the hole, they're trying to putt it into a small circle or not trying to make it from 60 feet. Other people get afraid on a 4-footer because they can miss. Let's just remember, regardless of the length of the putt, we want to putt this to make it. So I'm going to pick out my spot and hit it right at the hole.
See, on this putt here, we're going to see that Brett is going to see the line and just putt it and let it happen. That's an attitude we want to have on every putt, regardless of the length. Now we're about 12 to 15 feet away. We want to have the same mindset and the same attitude.
I'm not going to do anything different. I've got my line or my spot. I'm going to look at it, get into my routine, and go.
The real key here is a lot of times players will tell me that, one side of their brain wants to make the putt from this length for birdie, and the other side of their brain is worried about running it by and 3-putting it. And the whole key is to get your mind into seeing that line and seeing the ball go in and just do it.
You didn't happen to watch that one go in, did you?
Well, I knew it was going in the hole. There's no question about that.
I think we have to make sure everybody knows here that even though that putt went in, sometimes when they don't go in, your misses are going to get closer, but you still got to stay in the same mindset.
Yeah, and that's an important point. As we get further and further from the hole, the chances of it going in are reduced, but we still want to approach it with an attitude of putting to make it.
Now let's see what we can do here on this putt that's probably about 40 feet.
And again, we want to have the same mindset and the same attitude, and we want to simply putt to make it. And that's one of the things you'll see is that part of the reason for this attitude is we're going to make more putts from this distance, and part of the reason for having this attitude is that as we're into making it, our misses are going to get a lot better and end up a lot closer. And that's what we're looking for, is to make more putts and have our misses be closer.
Exactly.
Another issue that comes up a lot when working with players on putting is this whole idea of speed, and should you think about speed or shouldn't you think about speed? Should you just react, or do you have to consciously think about the speed that you want to hit the putt?
Well, that's a good question. For me, I think one of my strengths in putting is the speed, and a lot of people will talk to me and ask me about, what do you think about to get your speed, or how come your speed's so good? And I really do, when I putt well, have great speed. My ball seems to get to the hole and go by the same distance a lot. And it's funny because I always answer these people with this same answer. I don't ever think about speed. And they give me this quizzical look like, well, how can you have great speed if you don't think about it? And I always try to relate to them in other sports. Well, if you're going to throw a ball, you just look and throw. You don't practice certain distances. And, I've played enough golf, and most people have played enough golf where they can learn speed just by looking at the greens, getting in the wind conditions, the slope, and trusting your instinct. I think that's very important. And you'll find that if you can do that, your speed will be much more consistent.
If you think about it, it's really what we mean by saying trust that the ball's going in the hole. I mean, if you really trust that it's going in the hole, you wouldn't give yourself a lesson on how hard to hit it. And it's really important people understand that. Another issue that comes up all the time is related to, what do you do to read a green? And I don't tell people to never walk around a hole and read the green and look at the green or look at the slope, but I do find that most people would be a lot better off if they would go with their first instinct. And I've had a lot of success with people in just getting them to walk on the green, and what does your first instinct tell you? And it's amazing how the first instinct is systematically better than your second or third guess, because the second or third guess is almost always based on doubt or fear of misreading it or fear of missing the putt, and yet the first instinct is always based on that gut instinct that's totally, centered in trusting that the ball's going in the hole. And I would just say anytime a player can just trust their gut instinct and go with it, I'd really encourage people to do it. You know, Brad, a real key to becoming a really good putter is to have a really good routine. And we know how important it is to have a mental routine on every putt. But every once in a while, I find that players will hit a 6-iron, say, onto the green, and they go from being really excited about having hit a really good 6-iron onto the green to all of a sudden taking 2 steps and worrying about how bad they're going to feel if they don't make it. How early before getting to the green do you start thinking about the putt?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of times it depends on the course we're playing. If I'm familiar with a golf course, I know what the putt's going to do basically before I get to the green. Most of the time I'm excited about having a chance to make birdie. I don't dread putting or worry about putting, but I want to show you what my routine is here. When I come up to the ball to mark it, I get a good idea for what the break's going to do by looking at the slope on the green, maybe wind conditions, the hardness or the firmness of the green. And I know from holes past or from the putting green how fast the green is. But I'll come behind the ball and I'll be reading the putts while my other players are putting theirs, or if it's my turn to putt, I'll be going to the other side of the hole on a difficult putt. But basically, I'll stay behind the ball, my caddy will give me my ball back, and I'll know what my line is. I know this putt's going to break 5 or 6 inches to the left.
Do you feel like you really trust your first instinct a lot with your putting?
When I'm putting my best, sometimes I don't even have to read the putt. I know what it's going to do, and I find that I putt my best with that first instinct. When I'm second guessing, I always make sure that I don't putt until I am absolutely decisive on where this putt's going to go. I know this putt's going to break to the left, so from behind, I'll visualize my line, and I see a small, thin line with break in it right towards the middle of the cup. So when I stand up over this ball, I can see my line going towards the cup. I'll take a practice stroke that I want to simulate the putt I'm going to use, and then I'll put the putter behind the ball, look down my line once, one more time, and I go. It's worked real well for me. I know if you can keep consistent with your mental routine and think about where you want to have the putts go, you'll make more putts too.
You know, Brad, a final step in any good routine is what do you do after you putt the ball? And could you kind of take us through what do you do mentally if you make it and evaluate, and what do you do mentally if you miss it or don't make as good a putt as you wanted to make?
That's a good question. A lot of times when you make a putt, you pat yourself on the back and you go to the next green excited about putting. If you miss, which everybody's going to do, and I do quite often, you have to go to the next green with a good frame of mind. I try and evaluate my putts not only if they go in, but did I do a good job behind the golf ball? And then when I was over the ball, did I trust it? If I made the putt, I'll make sure that I trust just as well on the next one. If I missed, I will make sure I go to the next putt not blaming mechanics or stroke and saying, okay, you've got to get more trusting, more confident and cockier, and especially as the round goes on, get freer and freer and looser so that your misses can turn into positives. And I think that's one reason why I've become a good putter, and I know that this will help you become a better putter too.
See, I think it's so important that everyone understands that final point about Brad does a great job of not letting results totally dictate his attitude and his evaluation. He's evaluating whether or not he was in the right frame of mind and gave it his best chance. And I think everyone would benefit if they'd learn to do that a lot better. One of the things that I see in Brad that I really love to have him talk a little bit about and share with everyone is that he's an exceptional putter to a large extent because he doesn't have to be totally dependent upon results in order to feel like he's putting great. And I'd like to have you talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think a lot of people that have trouble putting worry about whether their putt actually goes in or not. And it's a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, but I try and get into the process of what I have to do and not worry about whether the ball goes in the hole or not. And maybe that's a little bit of what I said before about not caring whether I miss or not. But I get into the process. What do I have to do to make this putt? I know I have to line it up. I have to decide what speed I want to hit it on, and then I hit it. Once it leaves the putter, I don't have any control over that. And I tend to judge my putting rounds by how good a job I did behind the ball and to the time when I hit the ball, not whether or not it goes in. And a lot of people have have trouble, with that concept. But it's really helped me, and it makes it a lot more fun and a lot easier to play golf.
I find a lot of people who want to fight having a great attitude toward putting want to say to me things such as, well, I'd have a great attitude, but I've tried having a great attitude and it doesn't work. Or, I'd have a great attitude if all of my putts went in. And well, that isn't what separates people. It's can you have a great attitude in spite of the fact that a lot of the times you have a great attitude and the ball doesn't go in the hole. And that happens to Brad a lot, just like it happens to everyone else a lot. He just doesn't let it tear down his attitude and start causing him to question and doubt himself. And I'm always trying to get people to understand that there's probably a much stronger relationship between negative thinking and missing a putt than there is between positive thinking and making a putt. In other words, if I gave someone 100 putts from 8, 10 feet, and I asked them to have a negative attitude toward every putt and know they were going to miss or worry about missing, they would have to be unbelievably lucky if they made 1 out of 100. But if I gave that same person 100 putts from 8 to 10 feet and told them I want them to totally think about the ball going in the hole and know it's going in the hole and be decisive, they might make 60 to 70% of them. And that's what you have to live with. It's not going to always go your way just because you're doing all of the stuff that gives you your best chance. But when you understand this whole philosophy and attitude toward putting, you feel good about yourself right in here in your heart somewhere, because you can say to yourself, I did everything I could, I gave myself my best chance, and that's all there is. That's all I got, that's all I can do. I can't help it if it didn't go in.
As I've gotten a reputation for being a good putter, a lot of people ask me, well, what do you think about? And I honestly can say, I really don't think about a whole lot. And it's frustrating to those people that want to have an answer a lot more specific or something that they can bottle up and sell and use.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We have so much information out there that in today's world, it's a lot about, can you decide which bits of information are really important for you and are going to be helpful to you, and which information can you throw away and discard? And I mean, you have to pick the right information for you, and you're the only one that can make it into something that's going to be called wisdom that allows you to putt well. And I think some people think the idea is to see who can collect the most information about putting. I mean, everything we're talking about here on this tape, it all gets back to the same idea that you have to have trust, you have to have confidence, you have to be having fun at putting, and it's relatively easy to do. And it's so in opposition to making it complicated and gathering tons of scientific, complicated information. The only thing from science that's important, I think, for putting is that putting's important. Now, can you know it's important and have fun putting it rather than it's important, oh my God, I've got to make this one, which will kill you. And I mean, that's really important for everyone to grasp from what we're talking about.
If you'd like to learn more about the psychology of great golf, you can do so by purchasing Dr. Bob Rotella's books and audio tapes, currently available at fine bookstores, golf retailers, and pro shops. Or call 1-888-303-9797 for a free catalog. Rotella's current bestsellers include Golf is Not a Game of Perfect, Golf is a Game of Confidence, and Golf of Your Dreams. Special thanks to the staff and members of Rhode Island Country Club and head pro Fred Bruno for their interest and assistance in the making of this video. Putt to Win, the videotape with Brad Faxon and Dr. Bob Rotella, was produced by Primetime 2 Entertainment and Sports Programming Incorporated.